we welcome on the River Islands guest line Chris Rose of John Boy Media. You know the podcast, Chris Rose Sports, Baseball Today with Trevor Plouffe, plus Dugout Discussions every episode. A great podcast.
Don't sleep on BattleBots either.
No, BattleBots.
Never leave BattleBots out.
Plus, you know, Chris Rose, of course, from NFL Network, previously MLB Network. We love Chris Rose here at 95.7 The Game, and we are looking forward to chatting with him right now here on 95.7 The Game. Chris, we appreciate your time. How you doing?
Doing great, guys. Thanks for having me. I always appreciate it.
Of course. We're talking a lot about Logan Webb. I imagine you saw what happened on Twitter yesterday. After a rough first inning, but a good innings 2 through 7, he took to social media to defend himself against some complaints, against some frustrations from the fan base, even from some media members. In your experience, when a player is taken to social media to defend himself, what does that say about where that player is at mentally?
I think he had a bad day. I mean, welcome to being human. Logan Webb has been a pretty stand-up guy since he arrived in San Francisco. What was his first year? 2019, I think.
Yep.
I think he had a bad day. And I consider myself a friend of Logan's. He was a member of the Chris Rose rotation for a couple of years before we changed the show to Dugout Discussions. I'm sure I'll see him in Philadelphia. What I would say to him is, hey, listen, the smartest thing you did yesterday was deactivate your social media. Or if you're interested in increasing your brand, which a lot of athletes should, I'd have somebody else manage it. And you just stay off of it because it just doesn't help anybody. I think that probably if you were to ask Logan today, and I don't want to speak for him, but I would assume that he would say, yeah, just wasn't my best day. I had a bad day. And I was frustrated, and I've been frustrated with the season, and I shouldn't have fired back. And he might have those feelings about particular media members. I do know that Logan has been voted at least once, like the most accessible Giant and easy to deal with. He is always in front of his locker that I can tell. Now, I don't cover the Giants on a daily basis, but I do see who stands in front of their locker, and every time, even in times where he gets his brains beat in on the mound, he is there. He is answering questions, and he doesn't run from things. So, like I said, the next time we hear from him, it wouldn't surprise me if he says, I had a really bad day. I'm kind of embarrassed by what I put out there, and that's that. And then you move on. I don't think that this should be the centerpiece of what has been a horrific first half for the Giants.
It's not the centerpiece, but it is another piece. And Chris, you mentioned that about Logan. Like, he's always been so stand up, and he's wore it when he has to wear it and all the rest of it. And so from the outside looking in, you look at this Giant situation, and Logan Webb did what he did on social media. Do you see this as kind of a broken thing right now here?
No, I think that, like I said, I almost think you have to treat this as a one-off. This isn't a guy who, I mean, this is the first misstep that I can tell. Now, you know, I don't cover the Giants on a daily basis. They're one of 30 to me. They're an interesting one of 30 this year. But yeah, I mean, it's easy to group it all together when we have Tony Vitello trying to make history as the first manager ever to go from college ball to pro ball with zero pro ball experience whatsoever. Rafael Devers on several fronts. Willie Adames not performing. Matt Chapman and Casey Schmidt getting into it in the middle of a diamond, which wasn't a big deal. Like, that sort of stuff happens every year with teams. It just, once again, it's another tentacle on this octopus of a season. So I understand why people are interested. I understand why people are like, oh, that's it. It's all falling apart. To me, the biggest issue with the Giants is this, do you trust Buster Posey? Because there are plenty of teams this year throughout baseball that thought they were going to be significantly better than what they are. The Tigers, the Blue Jays, the Orioles, the Padres, the Mets. We can keep going on and on. These are teams in some cases that spent a ton of money, and it has not gone right. So how do you fix it? Is there a quick fix this year for the Giants? Obviously, the answer is no. So how do we take that next step so that Buster Posey looks like he knows what he's doing?
Chris, I know you're friends with Logan, and I don't want you to put words in his mouth, as you said earlier, but if you were to try to put yourself in Logan's shoes and think about what his career has been with the Giants. And it's been a phenomenal career. One of the best pitchers in baseball consistently, year in and year out, consistently gets Cy Young votes, yet the team is hovering around 500 every year, but 2021 when they won 107 games, won the division, took the Dodgers, down to a decisive game 5 in that series. This year, of course, they've bottomed out and they're 16 below 500. But I think about what I would feel if I was Logan Webb, knowing what I've meant to this franchise. I would feel incredibly frustrated about everything going on around me, maybe to the point where I'd consider maybe I want to go somewhere else. Do you think that has crossed his mind at all, that maybe his future is somewhere other than San Francisco?
I'm not going to answer. That's not fair. I don't know Logan's situation. I know that he's got a wife and a young daughter. And for people that think it's easy for us as fans and as media members to just sit there and look at it in a tiny little 3-hour-a-day box from 7 to 10 every night or whenever first pitch is, right? That's what we see, and that's what we think the life is. Well, that's not it, man. It's just not. He might love exactly where he lives. His daughter might already have some friends in the neighborhood. Like, we just don't know. So for us to sit there and say, man, he is really frustrated, he can't be happy. Do you think he's going to go up to Buster Posey and ask for a trade? I'm not going to do that because that's not fair of me to put myself in his shoes, because I don't know. Just like I don't know your guys' life, what's going on, and you don't know what's going on in my life. As a competitor, who the hell wants to be 15 games under 500 at the break? Nobody. But you will never hear me say, oh, that guy's got to ask for a trade. He's an idiot if he's going to stay in that situation. Look at the stuff we do with Mike Trout. Mike Trout could probably go into John Mozeliak's office right now and say, hey, listen, I can't do this anymore, bro. I know I'm making a ton of money. I know I'm living in Southern California. Like, I got a great $426 million contract. Get me out. And so we all say, well, why doesn't he do it? Maybe he's happy.
Yeah.
Maybe he's happy. And so maybe Logan is just saying, I've been through too much, to walk out at this point. That's not who I am, and I want to see this thing through. And I believe in Tony Vitello. I believe in Buster Posey, and we'll get this thing turned around, hopefully starting in the second half to take us through 2027.
Yeah, a little bit like Andy Dufresne as far as how much blank that Logan Webb has had to crawl through. So let me ask it a different way, Chris, not in terms of Logan's intentions, but the league in general. If Logan was available to be traded for, how much demand do you think there'd be?
Tremendous amount. I don't think there's going to be that many teams that. First of all, I love active trade deadlines. I love trades more than I like. I like trades more than I like the free agency period in the offseason. I just do, because when something affects multiple teams on many levels, it's great for the game. And I'm afraid that there aren't going to be enough dudes moving on before August 3rd. Logan Webb is fascinating because he is a guy that gives you innings. I mean, just look at yesterday. Gives up the grand slam, gives up 5 in the first, and still goes 7. There's not that many guys that are going to do that, where he stayed in the game mentally. Like, it sucks he gave up 5 runs. And I saw people on social media going, unfortunately, my algorithm, I've covered so much Giants stuff this year. It is filled. It is inundated with Giants stuff. And most of it, 99% of it, is negative. So the number of fans yesterday was like, well, that guy sucks. He's not an ace and all that sort of. Come on, folks. He's not Jacob Mizorowski, right? I get that. But what he is a guy that you can basically say he's going to give us at least 6, probably 7, always keep us in the game, and battle his ass off and be there for us. That goes a long way in this sport. And for a guy who's making, whatever it is, $18 million a year, sign me up. So there'd be a lot of people, I think, that want that. Yeah,
it'd be $23 million next year and $24 million the following year for Logan Webb. So you're right. It's pretty affordable as well for a pitcher of his caliber. So there'd be demand for him, and this would be a seller's market. What do you think the return could potentially be? I know I'm asking you to theorize, but we're talking about top 100 prospect kind of player in return for that kind of player. You think that's fair and on the table?
Yeah, I mean, I would think so. Totally. I mean, you're getting the rest of this year and whatever we'll have next year and then the year after that for a guy who until this season has been really healthy. Yeah. I mean, yes. And look, the Giants need plenty of help right now. And this has been, I'm not going to say shocking, but really disappointing on many levels that the veteran guys just haven't gotten it done well enough here. And it's been, I don't think you can judge Tony Vitello because I know that question's coming. It's been a nightmare, man. I can't even watch him most nights. Oh. That's how bad it is. And I love watching late night baseball. I'll watch virtually any team. Oh, I can't watch the Angels. I can't watch the Rockies. So sometimes the Giants are my first pick, depending on who's playing late night.
Right.
So I'm flipping around.
Yeah, we can't watch either, but we have to because it's our job. So at least you're able to pick and choose and like, oh, yeah, I'll watch tonight or not. Chris Rose here on 95.7 The Game. I'm wondering if the Giants aren't in a great spot based on the American League because it seems like almost everybody outside of the aforementioned, Royals and Angels, it feels like everybody thinks that they're maybe one player away. Does that help the Giants as a seller in this market where the American League is full of mediocrity?
I don't think most people think they're one player away. I think they feel like they're one player away from giving themselves a decent chance. I don't think there's a finishing piece out there except for Skubal, and that's only for a couple of teams, in my opinion. But I would like to see some GMs out there take a step forward and say, you know what, I am going to call Buster Posey. I would go after Logan Webb. It's hilarious that I see all these reports over the last few weeks. Yes, the Giants are open for business. They are willing to talk about Willy Adames, Rafael Devers. I'm like, huh? Who wants a guy who's got a $300 million contract and it's been up and down emotionally now in two cities? I mean, unless you're going to pay part of the bill, nobody's lining up for that. Now, he has played better over the last 3 to 4 weeks. He really has. And in my opinion, when he is right, when everything is right, he's one of the top 10 most dangerous hitters in the sport. So I get that. But, to me, Logan Webb's the most valuable piece.
Yeah, absolutely. We agree as well. Chris Rose with us here on Willard and Dibs, and you're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGM's FM in HD1 San Francisco, an Odyssey sports station, and the home of the Golden State Warriors and Valkyries, always live on the free Odyssey app, coming to you live from the Laughing Monk Studios. Chris, the way that we've been talking about it is there's the obvious trade candidates, which are Robbie Ray and Luis Suarez. They're obvious because they're on the last year of their deals. And then you have the ones where it seems like the Giants would be okay getting off of them, but it will be harder to move because of their contracts. That's Devers and Adames, as you mentioned. You can maybe even include Chapman in there, although he's probably easier to move than those other two. And then you have Logan Webb that we've been talking about, which seems unlikely because Buster Posey has said they're not interested in dealing Logan Webb. There are a couple of others, though, that are interesting and I would imagine have some value because they've got team control. It's Jung-Hoo Lee and Elliot Ramos. What is the league-wide opinion on those two guys? And if they decide to be open to moving them, what do you think they could get in return for those guys?
That's a tougher one. Lee's got a $100 million contract for a guy who, he's had it. I'll admit, I haven't checked his stats the last 2 weeks. So how has he been the last 2 weeks?
Cooled off a little bit. He was unbelievably hot for about 7 weeks.
Yes, he was. He was smoking. So I like him. I like him. Like his arm's great. I don't know what you get for him. Did he sign a 7-year deal when he came over here? Is that what it was?
I don't think it was
6 or 7.
I think it was 6. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is year 2, right? Or 3?
Year 3.
Where are we in?
Yep. Year 3. 2026, Chris. Yeah. You and I are no longer spring chickens.
He has an opt-out after 2028.
Yeah. And Ramos is interesting. I always expect a little bit more out of him. I just really do. Look, there's not a lot of right-handed pop on the market. So maybe you could get something interesting for him. There's just not going to be a lot of right-handed hitters. And, a team like Milwaukee is starving for right-handed pop. And, they feel like they're pretty close to where I personally think they need another starting pitcher. Like I'd call and say, hey, give me Logan Webb and Elio Ramos, and let's see what we can do. We got plenty of young guys here in this system, which they do.
Yeah, and Robbie Ray is another pitcher that the Giants might look to move, but
you're not going to get much for him.
I get that.
A rental.
A rental, certainly, but if you're a team that needs, a number 4, number 5 starter, I don't know, or a lefty out of the pen, I wonder what your perspective is on Tony Vitello from a distance, as far as he got put into a really tough spot and it hasn't gone very well.
No, it has not. So I interviewed him within the first 6 to 8 weeks of the season on Dugout Discussions, and I loved it. I mean, obviously, he's super entertaining for us. Like I said, I think it's impossible to judge him this year. I think there's just been too much stuff that has gone on. And some people will say, well, isn't that the manager's job, is to corral all the stuff that goes on? Yes, to some degree. The most important work a manager does outside of, hey, which reliever should I go get, is what happens behind the scenes. We're not privy to it. That's why I'd laugh when people say, well, that guy's not a leader, or, hey, that guy's our leader. Y'all don't know. None of us know until you get back there and you start doing your intel and talking to people who are in that room. You don't know who the leaders are. You don't know what they think of the manager. You can sit there and guess all you want. Like, we can all guess. Now, did I do a little research? Yes. And what I can tell you is there's a lot of players that liked him when I talked to him. Now, that was the first Dodger series in L.A., so that was May at some point. I don't know if that has changed since then. But those guys were all on board with him. They believe who he is. Could he alter a few things? Absolutely. But, Yankee fans get pissed off at Aaron Boone for what he says in front of a microphone all the time, because you know what he doesn't do? He doesn't throw his players under the bus. I have no idea what he's telling Anthony Volpe behind closed doors. No idea. So that's what matters most, in my opinion, when it comes to a manager. It's not what he says in front. Oh, that guy's not tough enough. How do we know? We don't know.
Chris Rose with us here on Willard and Dibs. It's Dibs and Grandy with you. Chris, similar to the Vitello conversation, you brought up Buster Posey, and the question that you asked was, do you trust Buster Posey to make the right decisions to help bring the Giants out of this? Is it possible for a front office, for a coaching staff to go through a season like this and remain intact? We've been operating under the assumption that Buster Posey's got plenty of room to work with because he's a franchise legend, and you don't hire an inexperienced manager and move on after just 1 year. Would you be shocked if Posey, Manassian, Vitello are all back again next year, or does something have to happen because this season has been that bad?
Well, how much experience did Buster Posey have when they hired him?
Fair point.
0.
Yep.
Now, he sat in on meetings and stuff like that, and he started to understand, I'm sure, some of the behind-the-scenes stuff. It's different, though, when you're like consultant or whatever it was, or running the show. That's a big difference. The minute he got hired, and I always look, I have an affinity for Buster on several fronts, right? I was the guy working the Fox Saturday Baseball when they won their first ring in San Francisco. I actually called his first hit at Dodger Stadium. There it was. So I'm linked with him. He probably doesn't remember that or care to know, but it's important to me. The thing is that the minute he was hired, I said, look, in the last 50 years, how many more popular Giants are there than Buster Posey? I mean, it's
a short list, Chris.
I mean, we're talking one hand, and it's probably less than that. We're talking about fingers,
right?
Not a full hand number. So I said, really, unless he wins a World Series, people are going to bitch and moan about every move that he makes. And it hasn't been good. It hasn't been good. And I for me, I didn't understand the day that he had the press conference when he wouldn't talk about Pride Night. I don't know why he did it that day. If he's just going to read a statement and then not answer any questions, I thought that was kind of weird. So I think there's been a lot that's been off with an organization that has, when it was going great, was really on point with a lot of stuff.
Right. A little off point now. And just from off point to off topic, I need to ask you, how devastated will you be when LeBron James decides he wants to be a Golden State Warriors and not a Cavs again?
I am not refreshing my Twitter feed the way I was in 2014. Let's just put it that way. I got friends back there that are texting me, we think this is going to be the day. I was like, just let me know. Look, I love LeBron. It's the only championship that I have experienced in 5.5 decades as a Cleveland sports fan. Would it bother me that he went to a team that beat us 4 times? I mean, it wouldn't bother me because you can go do whatever you want. I'm not here to tell you what to. It just would be weird. Like, I don't know. It just would be very strange. But if that's what he wants to do and he wants to go play with Steph and, if Draymond is back there and they have a good old time together, cool. Go live it up.